Welcome back, drawing buddies. This week we are going to draw Captain America from pencils to inks to colors. So, if that sounds like a fun way to spend 35 minutes, let's draw. Captain America's first appearance was in Captain America #1 from 1940. It was late in 1940, though, like December, I believe. He was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. I love those memes of Jack Kirby. Don't be down on yourself. Jack Kirby didn't draw Fantastic Four #1 until he was 40 years old. And that is true, but he was also, I think, a teenager or 20 years old when he did Captain America back in 1940. So Jack's been working in the comic industry pretty much since he was old enough to hold a pencil. So good on him, and there's a reason why he's called Jack the King Kirby. Steve Rogers, he was a sickly little kid and wanted to join the army to help the cause in World War II to defeat Hitler and the Nazis, which is kind of funny that's almost like controversial now, but it really shouldn't be. You should always be allowed to punch a Nazi. In fact, the cover of Captain America #1 is famous because he's punching out Hitler. So there you go. And I should keep politics out of these drawings, so that's the last we're going to talk about that. So yeah, Steve Rogers, scrawny little kid, wanted to help out, but he was a good kid, and he was very virtuous, and so even though he got denied to be in the military because he was sickly and small and had all kinds of health problems, he got accepted into, I guess they call it now, the Weapon X project. So he's Weapon #1, actually, not Weapon X. So what the hell do they call that? Anyway, Weapon X is Wolverine, so the Weapon, whatever they call it, program. And he was Weapon #1, the Super Soldier Serum. He was the first person it actually worked on. And it basically took this scrawny little kid and made him into the peak of human evolution. He was as strong as a human could be. He was as healthy as a human could be. His body didn't produce those endorphins that cause fatigue. I forgot what they're called. So he could go all day, as he likes to say. I could do this all day. And so then Captain America was born. And I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't really read Captain America comics back in the day because he was very uncool. I've mentioned this before, but before 2008 in the Iron Man movie, the only Marvel characters people cared about were the X-Men, Wolverine, Spider-Man, the Hulk. And, you had your favorites, you had things that you like, but, none of them were really cemented in the cultural zeitgeist. Nobody really knew who a lot of these characters were. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I remember when Iron Man came out and it was on the internet and it was a hit. And I saw a meme, and it was Marvel's movie template going forward, and it was a big joke. And it's like, and next they'll make a movie of Captain America, ha 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 ha. And then the Wasp and Thor and all those, and it was a joke because nobody really. Well, they knew who they were, but they didn't really care, so the joke was that these movies would bomb because nobody knows who any of these characters are who aren't comic nerds like me. And but that's exactly what they did. They made the Captain America movie, they made the Thor movie, they made the Ant-Man movie, they made the Doctor Strange movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. I love that movie, and they made that one. I remember me and a friend of mine, we used to go to the midnight shows when that was a thing, and we worked late that day, so we get our bonus, and then we took off and we went to the movies, see Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, so Captain America wasn't very cool, so I didn't read a lot of Captain America comics. The only one I actually read was Captain America: Sentinel of Liberty, and that was by Mark Waid and Ron Garney, an artist who should get a lot more attention than he does. He is freaking fantastic. I mean, he's one of the best artists out there. I think he's local to Connecticut too, so that makes him even cooler. But yeah, and that has the famous speech where he gives it to Wolverine. I forgot who he's quoting. It's from a poem or a short story where basically plant yourself when you know you're right and the world around you is crazy and everybody thinks you're wrong, but you know you're right. Plant yourself like a tree, and I don't know the whole thing, but it's they actually used it in one of the movies too. So that's the only Captain America I really read, and I don't remember anything about it because I haven't read it since it came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, I mostly bought it for Ron Garney's art, and I knew Mark Waid could tell a good story, so I picked that one up, and I was not disappointed. I also had random issues of Captain America, because, every once in a while something would happen, and I'd want to read it. Like if there was a Daredevil appearance or something, like there was a Venom storyline where I think Captain America got shot up with some kind of drug and it really screwed him up. And one of the things he fights Daredevil, beats Daredevil's butt, poor Daredevil. And so I had those too. But as far as his regular run, his regular series, I never really read Captain America. I didn't read the Avengers because they weren't very interesting back when I was younger. I mean, some of the stories now they've gotten regard and people go back and read them. But at the time, it's like, Avengers, who cares? And that was pretty much it. Then 2008 came and the Iron Man movie hit. And yeah, the rest, I guess we'll say, is history. So, very cool. And as for like Captain America's movies, the first one, the main reason I wanted to see that had nothing to do with Captain America. I mean, I thought Chris Evans was great casting and he looked the part and he fit the bill. But the main reason I wanted to see the Captain America movie is because it was directed by Joe Johnston. I think it's Joe Johnston. And he's the guy who directed one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, The Rocketeer from, 1990? 1991? So yeah, he directed The Rocketeer. So I love The Rocketeer. I think it's one of the greatest superhero movies ever, even though it's kind of been Disney-fied. If you read the comic, it's a little more edgy, a little more adult. Like in the movie, they made up his girlfriend's name. It's Jenny Blake. And it's played by Jennifer Connelly, who is, you can't argue with her being a beautiful woman, but she was his girlfriend. She was an aspiring actress, and she was trying to get into a movie with a guy named Neville Sinclair, who is played by Timothy Dalton. And yeah, but in the comics, his girlfriend was Betty Page. Betty Page is a burlesque model from the 1950s. You know, she used to do racy photos and stuff, which were kind of a taboo back then. But Dave Stevens did a lot of cheesecake pinups and stuff, which is basically, an older style of almost a calendar drawing paintings of good-looking women that from back in the 50s. Like, I think the first Marilyn Monroe shoot for Playboy would be considered cheesecake. And they were painted on the nose of airplanes in World War II and stuff. And but they were very underground and very niche. And he studied that stuff for his art. A lot of his covers, if you look at them, they're very inspired by that stuff for Dave Stevens, the guy who created The Rocketeer, the comic. And so he had all the old burlesque magazines and stuff that he used for reference and whatnot. And Betty Page was his famous model, but by then she had given it up, and I think she became a born-again Christian, and she was living a whole new life. But he found her, and he befriended her, and, he included her, Betty Page, as Cliff Secord, the Rocketeer's girlfriend, in the comics from, I think they started in 1982, and they were very sporadic. They were like the backup issue in like Comico Presents or Pacific Presents, and they're scattered all over the place, and then they're finally collected into like an oversized volume. And then they did a thing called the Rocketeer Adventure Magazine, which was supposed to be a regular ongoing magazine of new Rocketeer stories, but it came out like once every year, and I think issue 3 took like 6 years to come out. It came out in the later 90s, long after the movie did. But yeah, the Rocketeer is pretty great. And Joe Johnston, he directed that. He's also famous for designing a lot of the starships and everything you see in Star Wars. He was a production designer and a model designer, so I forgot which ones he actually built. I think one of them was the Slave one, or the Fire Spray as they call it now for Boba Fett, but don't quote me on that. But he built a lot of the ships, and he did a lot of the drawings for Star Wars too, so that's another thing about Joe Johnston that makes him super cool. And he directed the first Captain America movie, which, while it's not my favorite Captain America movie, that is Winter Soldier, the first one definitely hits all the right feels for the nostalgia and all that stuff. He definitely knew what he was doing in the World War II setting where the movie takes place. You got the look down, he got the feel down, he got the everything right about it. I even like the little Easter egg at the beginning when they're at the World's Fair and you can see the Human Torch in a tube, because the original Human Torch wasn't Johnny Storm. It was a robot that an android, actually, an intelligent android, but when he was exposed to oxygen, he burst into flames as solar cells or whatever. He's a very cool character. He predates Captain America. I believe he's actually, his first appearance is in Marvel Comics #1, which came out in 1939. And that used to be considered the Submariner's first appearance too, but then they found a giveaway comic that was supposed to be given away in movie theaters. I forgot what it's called. And that had a short story about the Submariner, and that predates Marvel Comics #1. So I always thought that was pretty cool, that they just found a filing cabinet full of these comics. And yeah, and that was like the original Marvel comic. But in like the late 40s and the 1950s, superhero comics, they kind of fell out of favor. And so they really stopped publishing almost all superheroes except for pretty much Batman, Superman, and I don't know if they stopped Wonder Woman. I'd have to look that up, but she might have survived too. But that was pretty much it. Superheroes were, nobody cared anymore. They were into romance comics, they were into horror comics, and things like that. So they stopped publishing Captain America around 1950, whatever. And then Marvel Comics, I think they're still called Timely at the time. They were publishing mostly monster comics and romance, like Journey into Mystery, the first appearance of Thor's, and Journey into Mystery 83, but everything before issue 83, they're about giant space aliens and giant monsters and things that came to Earth. And same thing with Tales of Suspense, number 39, I believe, is the first appearance of Iron Man, but before 39, it was all monsters and aliens and stuff like that. Jack Kirby just went nuts drawing all these cool giant aliens and monsters. So if you ever get a chance to read any of those, or if there's any collected anywhere online or, on the Marvel app, I would recommend checking those out because they're crazy. The first Magog, a giant alien monster stomping through New York City and stuff like that. They're really awesome. I was lucky enough to get a couple in a box of comics I bought at a estate sale once, and I read all of them. They were great. And so Captain America wasn't published for a long time, and then in 1961, I believe, Stan Lee said, I want to try something different. So he did the Fantastic Four, and the Fantastic Four was a hit. And then he said, all right, I want to do the Spider-Man thing. And I'm like, well, we're going to cancel Amazing Fantasy, so do whatever you want, Stan. So him and Steve Ditko, they did Spider-Man, and that was a big hit. And then they started introducing more heroes. They introduced Iron Man, they introduced the Hulk. I think the Hulk first, and they introduced, Thor, Iron Man, all those in the other books, the Journey into Mysteries and the Tales of Suspense. So instead of like an Iron Man comic, you got Tales of Suspense. Instead of Thor, you got Journey into Mystery. And, we're done with the pencils. It's time to start inking Captain America. So you had all those things popping up, and then to capitalize on the success of Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, for 1963, they were going to introduce two new books. One would be the X-Men, and that was a take on the whole racial injustice and the civil rights movements. The mutants were looked at as lesser beings, and they're trying to fit into society while trying to help society. And then the other one, as like a Spider-Man analogy, was supposed to be Daredevil. But the guy who drew Daredevil, which we've told the story before, Bill Everett, was really slow and it was taking forever, and he wasn't going to meet his deadline to release in 1963. So in a rush, Stan Lee's like, all right, we're going to take characters we already know. We're going to make a team book. I'm going to have Jack Kirby draw, because he could draw a whole book in a week because he's a freaking machine. And they called it the Avengers. So instead of Daredevil in 1963, we got the Avengers. And in issue number 4 of the Avengers, they decided to reintroduce Captain America to the world. And that's where the whole thing where he got frozen in ice during World War II, and Bucky disappeared, and then, they find him in an iceberg, they thaw him out, and voila, Captain America's back. And eventually, he starts leading the Avengers, and then I think in 1968 or 69, they gave him his own book, and it actually started at issue 100 or 101, because back then they didn't do number ones, they just started the numbering at wherever a book left off, or whichever book it was replacing left off, and I think Tales of Something was the Captain America one, and when they changed the title, they just kept the numbering. So you didn't get your fantastic first issue every 6 months like they do now. Like, I used to buy every Daredevil book coming, whether I read it or not, and I just kind of gave up, because every 6 months there's a new number one, a new creative team, and a new thing. So I was like, whatever. I would just be happy with my old issues and be a grudgy old man and stick to what I know. But every once in a while I do pick up a few new issues of whatever to check it out. Like, I just picked up all the issues of Absolute Batman. I gotta read those. And I think I might actually do a drawing of him, because it just looks fun drawing a Batman that's the size of a house. And yeah, so Captain America got his own book, and, he just kind of plodded along, and he wasn't obscure, but he definitely was not super popular forever. And then, the MCU kind of made him popular. The MCU kind of made all the obscure little Marvel characters popular. I mean, there's people who read the issues and people loved them, and I loved some weird stuff too. I always liked the weird characters. And my favorite was Daredevil, and he was no more popular than Captain America or Iron Man back then, but that's the one that I liked. And in the 70s, they had the Hulk show. In the 60s, they had the Batman TV show, and they had the Wonder Woman TV show, and they tried to make a Captain America one. I think they did. They made a few episodes or whatever. And Captain America just looked weird. He drove a motorcycle. His mask was just a giant motorcycle helmet. His shield was like clear plastic with the red and the blue painted on it. It was weird. I haven't seen it in forever, so I can't tell you much about it, except that it wasn't very good. And I'm sure there's diehards who love it. So if you love that show, I'm sorry for saying it's not very good, but it wasn't very good. And then in the 90s, they tried to make a Captain America movie. It was what was it? It was bad. Captain America was Captain America, and it looked like the traditional costume, except it was made out of like rubber, and it looked like it was made out of rubber. And I feel sorry for the actor who had to wear it because he was probably sweating his face off in that thing. And the funny thing about it is Captain America on his helmet and his thing, as you can see in my drawing, his ears are exposed. And instead of exposing the actor's ears on the in the 90s movie, they put rubber ears on the mask, and they just look so bad. And the Red Skull, instead of being German and a Nazi, they made him Italian. So for some reason, the Red Skull was Italian. And it just was not a good movie. I mean, I haven't seen it since forever, but yeah, that was bad. But as far as the MCU goes, even though I was never a huge Captain America fan, I think the Captain America movies are the best movies they've done. Well, at least the trilogy. The fourth one wasn't that good. It felt more like a rejected Hulk movie than a Captain America movie, which kind of stunk because, Sam Wilson deserved better. But, yeah, the Captain America, First Avenger, I love that movie. Winter Soldier is even better. That was a great movie, even though it's kind of almost like it's a backdoor Avengers movie, because it has all the Avengers in it. And the big fight at the airport introduces Spider-Man and all that stuff. And then there's, or is that the third one? I'm mixing up my movies here. Sorry. No, Winter Soldier is just the one with Bucky, and they find out that he was brainwashed and lost an arm in the first movie and was used by Russia as a covert assassin, and Steve wanted to save his friend, and that's the one where they introduced the Falcon, and Black Widow's in that one. In fact, my favorite part of that movie is something that doesn't even happen in the movie. It's when they're recruiting the Falcon to help them, and the Falcon's like, oh, well, if I had my jetpack thing and my wings, I could help you out a lot more. And like, okay, where do they keep those? He's like, oh, they're in this super massive security thing behind all these different security chambers that nobody could get into without the right passwords and passcodes, and you'll never get it. And Black Widow and Steve just kind of look at each other, and they go, okay. And then they don't talk about it again. They just show up with the backpack and say, here you go, Sam, let's do our thing. And he's just like, oh, wow. So, they didn't waste time showing you how they did it or what they did. Just that you knew they were good enough to get the job done, so they didn't have to show it happening. That's also the one with Zola and all that stuff, and the underground thing with all the tape libraries and the old green computers and stuff. That was a pretty awesome scene. So yeah, it's all coming back to me now. Oh, it's that song, it's all coming back to me now. So, I'm sorry, I'm all kinds of sidetracking. Because as you can hear, my voice is still a mess. I'm not sick anymore. I'm getting better, but my throat is raw from a lot of coughing. So eventually you'll hear me stop complaining about my throat and coughing and being sick. It's just been a bad winter for me, so nothing I can really do about that. So yeah, that one ends with Captain America letting Bucky beat him up and get away, but his friend starts to remember, and that's good. And then it picks up in Civil War, where they passed the Sokovia Accords because of what happened in the second Avengers movie. And they put Team Iron Man versus Team Captain America. Because Captain America's like, no, we don't need to register. We should have governments telling us what to do because that leads to corruption. And then all kinds of bad things happen, and Iron Man's like, hey, listen, man, we almost destroyed the world. And it's like, no, Tony, you almost destroyed the world with your stupid robots. We had nothing to do with that. So he was all for it, and, that's the one that introduces Spider-Man and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, I really dug the Captain America movies. Now, the Iron Man movies, the first one was pretty cool. I remember taking my boy to see that one, and we both liked it. And then we also saw a bad movie, not Captain America, Indiana Jones Crystal Skull came out the same year. And that was really disappointed because I love the Indiana Jones movies. I think Indiana Jones, the first trilogy, are the greatest adventure movies ever made. I will die on that hill too. And Crystal Skull was not good. It was better than the Dial of Destiny that just came out, but not good. Poor Indiana Jones. Yeah, poor Indiana Jones. When my son was younger, I was showing him all the cool stuff I liked when, I was growing up, because, I want to share that with him. And, I got him watching the Batman and Superman movie and all the animated stuff. And it was time to watch Indiana Jones. So I got the box set. I was working at a video store at the time. So I brought it home, and I'm like, all right, we're going to watch Indiana Jones. And he's like, no, I don't want to watch it. It looks terrible. And he's crying. I'm like, all right, well, listen, we'll put it in. We'll start it. And if you really don't like it, we'll shut it off. He's like, fine, we'll watch it, Dad. I forgot how old he was, but he was younger. And by the time Raiders of the Lost Ark was over, he loved it. He's like, oh, is there another one? Can we watch another one? So we ended up watching the whole trilogy that day, and he loved it. And my son, he's a whistler. When he was just little, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, he was sitting in the little bouncy thing that you put kids in. I would sit and talk to him, and, just randomly talk to him to help build his brain power and all that stuff. And I started whistling at him. I started just looking at him and going. And after about a week, he started trying to blow it back. Just go. Sorry about all the noise in the microphone. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, he started whistling back at me. So the kid couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, but he could whistle. And the reason I bring that up is because when he was older and we did the Indiana Jones thing, he would whistle the Indiana Jones theme. So I started whistling with him. We'd do it back and forth. I'd whistle the first part, he'd whistle the second part. Then we'd do the whole middle section, the march part together. It was just a cool little thing we do. And now when I really want to embarrass him in front of somebody, because he's old now, I'll say, we're going to do the thing. And he knows exactly what I'm talking about. He's like, no, we're not doing the thing, Dad. I said, we're doing a thing. He's like, no, even though, he has a daughter of his own now, and he's got his own house, and I still embarrass him with whistling the Indiana Jones theme every now and then. So there's a little too much sharing on my part for you guys, but it's a fun story, and I'm not here to hide things. I'm here to talk to you about things and, let you get to know me a little more, my motivations for doing these things. So I'm going to tell you a little too much information every now and then. When I get bored, I go on Reddit, and one of the Reddit things I follow is power scaling and, superhero things on, this guy fighting that guy and whatever. And one of the ones that comes up all the time that people are sick of is, who would win, Captain America or Batman? And if we're talking about movies, Captain America is going to win. The Chris Evans Captain America, he will beat any movie Batman that's been out yet, whether it's Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck. If he had more movies and more showings, he might be able to take Captain America. Oh, inks are done. Time to color Captain America. Man, we're flying through this one. And so yeah, movie Captain America, I think could take any movie Batman, the way Batman's been portrayed. Because they always try to portray Batman as grounded and realistic, which is cool, but sometimes you just want to see Batman doing dumb Batman stuff. And we never really got that in a movie. The closest thing we got was probably the Joe Schumacher movies, and we all know how good those were. And but comic Batman and comic Captain America, that's a whole different thing. The Super Soldier Serum made Captain America peak human, so he's as good as a regular human could ever get if they trained all their lives and ate the right food and took their vegetables and all that stuff. And same thing with Batman, he trained himself to be peak human. And DC scales higher than Marvel in almost everything as far as powers go. So I would say Batman is at least as strong as Captain America, comic book wise. And as far as fighting skills go, you could say Captain America's older and whatever, but he's not really, because he got frozen in ice after being Captain America for like a year or two, and then he woke up again. And as far as fighting styles go, Captain America, he mostly uses boxing and judo, I think, and he knows some karate, and he's versed in other forms of fighting. He's proficient in them. Not all of them, but some. Batman, on the other hand, he is literally a master of every form of hand-to-hand combat on Earth in the DC universe, and some alien ones. Like, I think one of them is Kryptonian Jiu-Jitsu, or whatever it's called. So Batman is a more skilled fighter. He's got a better tactical mind than Captain America, because he's on par with Iron Man as far as tech goes. That's a whole nother thing we won't get into, because it's not a Batman or Iron Man video. And Captain America basically has a shield, and that's his weapon. Batman has tech coming out of his ears. So I think if they just met in a random alley and they got into a fight, I'm sorry, Cap fans, but there's no way Captain America is taking out the Batman. Even a Batman without prep time. So that's my 2 cents on that. Take it as you will. And hopefully I don't upset too many people saying that. Especially since this is a Captain America video, not a Batman video. And as for coloring Captain America, as you can see, I'm going pretty straight here with his colors. The blue, the red. You know, nothing too out of the ordinary, nothing too fancy. I always plan on doing them a little bit poster style by putting, you know, the Captain America text on it and just making it look like it'd be a cool poster you hang on your wall instead of just a cool drawing. And I finished coloring it like this, you know, just standard colors. Nothing fancy. I'm like, you know what? It's kind of boring. I mean, the colors are kind of boring. I'm like, yeah. You know, like I showed my father. He's in his 70s. Like, I like these colors. They're more Captain America. But everybody else I shared it with, they like the bright colors. I'm like, you know what? I want to make this pop. I want it to be, you know, colorful. I want it to be not over the top, but just enough to make it more interesting color-wise. So, you know, I swapped out the whatever background color I had, and I went through a few different ones, bright greens, bright blues, and I settled on the orange. And then I just brightened everything else up. Like, the shading on the blue is more of a purple. The red is more of a magenta than a red. But when you put them all together, it still looks like a red and blue suit. It's just brighter and, you know, just more interesting, I think, as far as coloring goes. And so I went with it. Even his skin tones, you know, like I took the bright skin tone instead of making it just a light, fleshy color. I made it more of a greenish brightness, and then the shading I made more of an orange. And I think that works really well for this drawing. And I'm starting to play with my colors more. Like I got a Harley Quinn coming up where I use the magenta for the red again, and just everything is bright and in your face. Except for next week's video. Well, next week might be Harley, it might be Hellboy, one of those two. But the Hellboy video is pretty straight, you know, there's a lot of black, a lot of shadows, and just basically reds and browns and yellows, you know, just standard Hellboy colors. I didn't get crazy with that. In fact, I didn't even do any real shading on Hellboy, because if you look at Hellboy, it's mostly just solid colors with like slight gradients to them. So for the coloring Hellboy, I went with that. I just kind of went with gradients, you know, fading up or down. But they're subtle, but they're there, and they make all the difference in the world. It's funny, I just sit here, and the day I'm going to draw something, I decide who I'm going to draw, and I never really think if it's going to be popular or not. And trust me, I've made some missteps. I've had videos that really tanked on the views in the shorts, and I have ones that do really well, so we'll see how Cap does. And Hellboy, I'm not sure, because he's not super popular, but the people who love Hellboy. So I guess we'll find out when that video comes out how well the Hellboy video does and how many people actually like Hellboy. The only thing I'm disappointed with on this Captain America drawing is comic Captain America has these cool gloves. They flare out, and his boots, they kind of fold over, old school superhero style from the Golden Age. And the way I drew him, you can't see any of that stuff. But I wanted, as soon as I decided to draw Captain America, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And this was it. Well, actually, that's not true. I was going to draw him jumping at you. And I had it all sketched in. And I wasn't sure what arm I wanted to put the shield on. And I was just There's part of his leg that wasn't working right for me, so I started looking up some reference, and I typed in Chris Pacello because he's one of my favorite artists, and one of the Captain Americas that popped up was literally almost exactly the same as the drawing that I did. It's like, we're not going to use that one. We're going to start over. And then I was thinking of a poster layout, and I'm like, all right, we're just going to draw him standing there, Captain America on the side, cool stuff. Awesome. So yeah, as you can see here on the drawing, I was deciding how big I wanted to make. I was going to go really big with it, and obnoxious, but I decided on the small little corner one. You can see here's how the original colors were. I finished coloring them, and I was all done, and I was ready to call this video done. Well, the drawing of Captain America for the video done. And I was just looking at it, like, no, it needs more. It needs more color. So I went back in and I redid the colors. But I put that in the video. You'll see me do it. In fact, this video is almost done. Wow. I thought this was going to take longer. The only real stops I had to make while I was rambling on about nothing was when I started coughing, and I had to just go back and continue my thought. So, wow. Guess I know more about Captain America than I thought I did. That's kind of cool. But yeah, here's where I get the sizes right and the proportions, put my name, I'm like, oh, I'm done. But no, I wanted the colors to get a little more fun. Also, when I was younger, I used to love reading the handbooks to the Marvel Universe. Oh, here I am playing with the colors now, so just kind of watch that. But the handbook to the Marvel Universe, and so I read those things cover to cover. So I used to know a bunch of obscure stuff about a bunch of obscure characters and not so obscure characters. And in there, it said the Captain America shield was a composite metal made of vibranium, I think Wakandan vibranium, and adamantium. And I believe that all my life, as far as being a comic reader goes. But apparently that's not true. And his shield is not a composite of adamantium and vibranium. And I forgot exactly what it is made out of. But it's pretty indestructible, and it produces more kinetic energy than it takes in. So that's why when he throws it and it's bouncing all over the place, come back to his hands, it's actually gaining momentum instead of losing momentum like most things would. And so that's a pretty cool property of his shield. And I love that scene in, is it Winter Soldier? Where he throws the shield at Winter Soldier and he just kind of catches it like, what's this? And then he throws it down. So that was always a fun scene. There's no reason to think that Batman couldn't do the same thing, and he would. Because he would realize that the shield is a dangerous part of Captain America's arsenal and try to eliminate it. Sorry to go back to that. Yeah, but here we go. We're playing with the colors and the purples. And then I'm like, all right, Cap looks cool. But I can't leave the background purple if I'm going to go with, purple on Cap's costume. And I don't know what I decided on the orange, because I kind of think this red looks really good too. But, we get there. Because now I'm just adding little highlights I forgot to add earlier. And still thinking about, do I want to keep this red? And the answer is no. I end up with orange. There's a local comic dealer, I won't give his name, but he works a lot with Richie, the guy we talk about the Cabana all the time. Except he's older, he's the one who got Richie started in the whole thing. And his big collection, the thing that he collected, like number 1 through whatever was Captain America. He had all the golden, he had the full Golden Age run from Captain America number 1 to whatever issue it stopped at, number 100, 101, 90, whatever, I don't know. And it was a pretty darn impressive thing to see. And he recently started selling them a few years ago, and he's making a killing on them because he had them all graded, and they were all, they weren't trash copies, they weren't like 9.0s and 10s and everything, and 9.8s, but they were really nice copies. And yeah, he's doing pretty good on selling the things, as far as making money and stuff. But it's cool to see him up on the walls and stuff and talk to him about it, because those are the kinds of things you don't see every day. You don't see Captain America number 1. Oh, shoot, we're done with the drawing. So Captain America is done, and we'll get back to Sam or whatever another day. So like and subscribe and all that other fun stuff. Thanks for stopping by, and go out and draw something. And sorry about the abrupt ending of this video.